There are many animals that can live both on land and in the water. Think of frogs, turtles, or alligators. However, there is one type of animal that we know for sure could have evolved to become human. I'm talking about fish. And if you think this is absurd, just listen to this. All living land vertebrates, including humans, are part of a group called tetrapods. And all tetrapods have 4 limbs, or 4 digits, hence the name. But fish are also tetrapods. Some fish, such as mudskippers, have 4 limbs with fingers and toes, albeit very small. Of course, they cannot walk on land, but they can drag themselves across land to get from one body of water to another. In fact, genetic studies show that these so-called walking fish are more closely related to us than to other fish that cannot walk. This means that our fishy ancestors could walk. They had a hard time adapting to life on land, but they were able to do it. So why couldn't we go back? Why can't we live underwater as well? We can swim, but we don't breathe underwater, and we dry out pretty fast. As you might know, all life on Earth is thought to have originated in water. There is no life on land without water. We need it for nearly everything. So it is likely that the first animals that existed also lived in the ocean. Over millions of years, some of them ventured out of the water onto land, which was probably quite difficult. Life on land is very different from life in water. It's harder to move around, you dry out faster, you have to deal with gravity and much more. So it's not surprising that life on land evolved very differently from life in water. Animals that stayed in the water did not have to worry about drying out, so they kept their water-based body shape and didn't develop limbs. Fish, for example, have fins and tails for swimming, not for walking, while tetrapods have limbs and lack a tail fin. Our fishy ancestors were probably awkward on land, but they were able to adapt, while most of their fishy relatives could not adapt to life on land. But this does not mean that they went extinct. They simply evolved into different directions. So the question remains, why can't we live underwater as well? Since we know for a fact that our fishy ancestors could, it probably has to do with our evolution on land. We adapted to life on land and evolved very differently from what it would have been if we had stayed in the water. We have lungs instead of gills, hair instead of scales, and so on. And none of this helps us live underwater. But here is where things get really interesting. Even though we know that our fishy ancestors came out of the water, there is still the possibility that some humans did not. What if some humans evolved to live underwater? I am, of course, talking about mermaids. Mermaids are usually depicted as half woman, half fish, beautiful creatures that lure unsuspecting sailors to their doom. But let's be honest, if mermaids really existed, they wouldn't be nearly as attractive. Humans spend a lot of time and energy on their looks, and so would any other creature. So an actual mermaid would look more like a fish, only with a human head sticking out of the water. And judging from the stories of sailors, that's exactly what they saw. They described horrible creatures with sharp teeth, claws, and a stench that could knock you off your feet. Sounds more like a shark than a mermaid, doesn't it? Sharks have been around for a very long time, and humans have been at war with them since the moment we entered the water. Fishermen get attacked by sharks and they get tangled up in fishing nets. So it is likely that at some point in history, fishermen got their revenge and caught a mermaid, bringing it ashore. The story then got embellished over time and turned into a beautiful fairy tale that we know today. Or maybe it wasn't a mermaid at all, but a sailor who had one too many drinks and saw a manatee or some other marine mammal. What do you think? Did some humans evolve to live underwater? And if so, do mermaids exist? Please let me know in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.